Warning, I do not really speak that much French. I do have the accent super late off, so if I butcher words and you're French, please correct me in the comments below. And without further ado, the France de Colonial, or the Troupes de Coloniales, or the French colonial troops, or the Armée Coloniale, the colonial army, commonly called La Colonial, were the military forces of the French colonial empire from 1900 to until 1961. From 1922 to 1900, though, they was designated as Troupes de Marine, or Marine Troops, or just Marine. And into 1961, they adopted this name. They were recruited from either mainland France or from the French settlers or the indigenous population of the empire. This force played a substantial role in the conquest of the empire and even into World War I, World War II, the French Indochina War, or the First Indochina War, and the Algerian War, the Algerian Civil War, or the Algerian War. Africans contingent in the French army. France was the country that most extensively made use of the African soldiers from in the European theatres of France itself to the North African campaign and all over the world, but mostly on mainland Europe where they needed them. They already served in the Crimean War and in the Italian War and in the Franco-German War of 1870 and 1871. Several campaigns in the immediate pre-war period had risen African colonial troops, especially in this profile after the first Moroccan crisis of 1905-1906. Army General and radical politician Adolphe Mélissi pensioned for the extension of the compulsory military service to Muslim Algerians, and in 1912 decreed eventually allowed for their forces to recruit. Its numbers in volunteers fell short of requirement though, of course. From 1909, colonial officer Charles Maguin campaigned for a large Armée Noire, Black Army, to be recruited in West Africa and trained for deployment in European wars. He argued that demographic development would create an increasing gap between France and Germany's available army and manpower, and in West Africa were especially suited to be shock troops in the industrialized war because of their alleged less developed nervous system that made them immune to noise of the battle. As a result, in 1912, a decree was allowed to force recruitment in French West Africa and the use of French troops outside the colonies. Between 1914 and 1918, the French deployed approximately 450,000 indigenous troops from Africa, including West Africa, so-called Taralis Senegales, Algerians, so-called Tukos, Sapa, Tunisians, Moroccans, Mangalese, and Somalis, most of whom saw development in Europe. Settlers of European origin provided another 100,000 soldiers from North Africa, Chester de Fuaque and Juanava, and some 5,700 from Sierra Leone, units from the old Senegalese cities and ports, while also in the European extraction. On the other hand, a suggestion made by Prime Minister George Clemenceau in 1980 to hire up to 200,000 Ethiopian merchants never materialized though. Immediately after World War I, France African troops served in occupation in the German Rhinelands from 1919 to 1930, as well as in the southeastern Hungary from 1919 to 1929, and the former Allied intervention in the Russian Civil War from 1918 to 1920. African troops in the French army were numbers massively increased in the second half of the war, mainly fought on the Western Front and participated in a large major battles and a lot of large major battles. Additionally, they were deployed in 1915 in the Dardanelles expedition and even in the Balkans. After heavy losses in the first battles of 1914, a new doctrine was developed for Africans for a new doctrine for deployment of Africans was applied. They were no longer fought as independent units but were amalgamated with European troops. Every regiment of the Troupes Colonial, or the French or the colonial troops, which were composed, not compressed, of Europeans, got a West African battalion, and North African troops would often amalgamate so-called regiments mixtes or regiments mixtes or mixed regiments together with European sailors from North Africa. This doctrine also aimed at preventing the other defection of Muslim soldiers to the Germans, who were losing their allies, the Ottoman Empire. Why did I do something from the Middle East? The Ottoman Empire, to pose as friends of Islam and even to recruit Muslim POWs to the Central Powers cause. From 1917 on, with increasing numbers of African troops present at the Western Front, some were even incorporated into metropolitan units. Their task was more often to serve as shock troops in the first waves of attack. Casualty figures for French African troops deployed in Europe to be found in official reports, unofficial accounts, and in the historiograph are rather unclear, ranging from West Africans 250,000 to 6,500,000, through for Algerians 1,200,000 to 100,000, for Moroccans anywhere between 200,500 and 9,000, Mangolese from 2,400 to 4,000. Figures in most recent scholarly publishings typically confirm none of these extremes. These vague figures and these differing interpretations had led scholars to a contradictory conclusion that whether African troops were misused as cannon fodder, it would be too simplistic to base any judgment off of the cannon fodder theus on global figures of killed and wounded alone. For this neglect the temporal dimensions of deployment. West African troops knew to be withdrawn from the front and transferred to camps in southern France during the winter months. Furthermore, the overwhelming majority of North and West Africans only came to Europe in the second half of the war. Thus, casualty rates should not be compared to overall figures in deployment soldiers to average figures. John Harris Lunn, analyzing annual casualty rates in West Africa, concluded that the probability of West African soldiers being killed during this time at the front was 2.5 times higher than other French infantrymen. For many events in 1917 led credence to the idea that French army unit used its troops from colonies as cannon fodder. In April 16th, General Robert Nivelle launched an offensive in Champagne with participants of the 2nd Colonial Corps, including 35 West African battalions under the command of General Magen. The German counter-offensive cost the French army dearly. Almost half of all deployed West African soldiers died. Because of this, Magen became known as the Butcher, and at the end of April was relieved of his command. Already before this incident, French soldiers interpret the emergence of African troops as an unmistakable sign as an attack was going to be immense or deadly. Harry Bousser, from his novel Le Feu, described Moroccan soldiers as florid. They were imposing, even frightening a bit. Of course, they had heading for the front lines. Of course, they were heading for the front lines. This was their place, and their arrival means we were about to be attacked. They were made for attacking. French propaganda also developed similar teams. From the very first hours on, African regiments had the privilege to occupy most of the dangerous posts, which permitted them to enrich their books of traditions and past glory. A senior officer responsible for West Africans training camps in Fugis wrote in a letter in January 1918, the French African soldiers were cannon fodder, who should, in order to save white lives, made use of such more intensely. And even Clemenceau, in a speech delivered by the French Senate in 20th of February 1918, stated, "We're going to offer civilization to the blacks. They had to pay for that. I would prefer that 10 blacks killed rather than one Frenchman. Thus this is clear, that this is the last intention to assign colonial troops to especially dangerous tasks, a shock troops." Despite scholars' controversies on the interpretation of African casualty rates compared to Europeans, we cannot forget the Vietnamese, the Chinese, not the Angolans, the Senegalese, the Mongolese, the Algerians, the Dominicans, the Martinicans. We cannot forget anyone that served in the French army, even the Frenchmen themselves. In the end, the only equalizing war is death. So no matter if you were white, black, yellow, blue, red, white, and blue. I kind of made a French flag twice. Everybody was your friend, no matter what. No, wait, that's kind of cheesy. Nothing. I was going to end with a kind of cool quote, but I kind of read that one fast. My phone battery is about to die. Hopefully I should be able to pay with a... Hopefully I should be able to pay with a... Not pay with, to get a mic, hopefully next payday, which is another 2 weeks away. Bummer, but it's going to be worth it. Trying to save that a little bit. Kind of went a bit overboard getting season passes and stuff, so I mean it's only fair that I do a little bit more saving. But first two videos of the French for World War One. One is going to be better than the other. I think this rushed one going to be real choppy, but I might do it in its entirety because I'm only human, but I'll chop up like long pauses and stuff. But hope you enjoy the following delusional. If I butchered your language, rage in the comments below, and au revoir, je m'appelle, and other French words. Learn something. If you don't, well, I'm gonna leave you links to learn in the description. So take care. I'm gonna edit now and should be up in the next hour. Complete meta. Enjoy yourselves, enjoy your day. Bless. Laters.